All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is June 17th, 2024. We got a great guest on tonight, but before I bring him in, let's get our co-host in here. Gary Kendrick, how are you doing today?
Howdy, good. How are you, Billy?
I am doing just fine. Glad to have you here with us. And without further ado, I'm going to bring our guest in tonight. Many know him as the owner of Bigfoot Books. He's also part of the Bluff Creek Project. Stephen Streufert, welcome to the show.
Hello, Billy, Gary. How are you?
Good to have you on. Glad you could come and join us tonight.
Thanks. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Well, that's how it always happens, you see. I left for 10 years and here I am.
Yeah, you were gone for a while there.
I was gone for a little while. Well, I'm glad to have you on. Just like to say hello to Jeffy Smith. He's already in the chat. We've got several others in there, but they haven't logged in that chat yet. So welcome everybody to the show. It's going to be a good one. So what I usually do, Stephen, is Gary is my researcher. And he's really good at researching and getting questions together. And I know he's just itching to ask you questions about the Bluff Creek Project.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay then.
Steve, I know you're originally from Wisconsin. Is that correct?
That's right, Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And you moved to Bluff Creek in the 1970s.
Well, nobody lives in Bluff Creek, but Willow Creek, I lived there for 23 years, and now I don't. I'm living down here in the city, in Eureka, in an old Victorian style building. There's hardly any trees around here. There's no wildlife except for skunks and opossums and raccoons. But yeah, I after Milwaukee, we moved out to Santa Barbara. That's where I grew up. From young childhood age of 8 till I went to college. And I went to college kind of following redwood trees up to Santa Cruz and then here to Humboldt. And when I finished that, I just didn't want to leave. I was in the used book business, and it was just far more interesting than getting a PhD to me. And so I stayed and moved to Willow Creek eventually. And that's how Bigfoot got a hold of me.
God, I can't imagine why Bluff Creek. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, it's just very strange to not have Bigfoot be a daily part of my objective life. I went from seeing Bigfoot all over every day and having people always coming up and talking about it to now I'm like walking around and nobody seems to know what Bigfoot even is.
Yeah.
So I know when you moved, you like you said, your main interest was in Bigfoot, but I've also heard that you're very skeptical. And I was wanting you to try to expand a little bit on that.
Well, I think skeptical thinking is important to everything we do in our lives. Belief is what gets in the way of truth and facts more often than a skeptic being so-called closed-minded. A true skeptic is really an agnostic who is just critical of, proposed solutions to the questions that are out there. Yeah, so Bigfoot to me is a possibility. I'm super skeptical about it, just like anything else in my life, So I don't see there's a contradiction there. I don't think that believers or so-called knowers have any more right to Bigfoot than those who have doubts or those who avidly do not believe. A lot of people are into Bigfoot just because it's fun, or because they're folklorists or they like Bigfoot movies. There's a lot of reasons.
Some
Right.
people, I think, just want it to exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
and I
that's-
really think that a good dose of skepticism is what keeps researchers honest, is what I think.
You guys who might be hardcore believers, you really need us. You need me and the coalition group on Facebook. You need groups like the Bluff Creek Project. You don't just go out there and say everything we find is a Bigfoot. We have
I agree
plenty
with that.
of evidence that we could put out there, like a lot of these other groups have done. But I don't think that finding some kind of ambiguous track constitutes Bigfoot evidence. Without further corroborative evidence, it's just not enough. And we've never found anything classically perfect like the Patterson film tracks or a sighting like that. We haven't had that in our group.
Yeah.
Because that was going to bring me to my next question. I'm sorry, Billy, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to tell him, that's what's so great about the PG film is you have physical evidence with the tracks, plus you have the film. It's not like they went out there and said, "Oh, look over there, there's a broken tree limb. I bet Bigfoot did that."
Yeah, not only that, you have plenty of other witnesses to it, although not so much the film image. There were other people down there who saw the tracks, who saw the site right after the film was shot. Lyle Laverty and Bob Titmus, Jim McLaren, those kind of guys went on separate trips and all confirmed a lot of things about the film site. So we have a pretty good idea from their initial investigation of what happened there. They found tracks beyond what's in the film. They look pretty convincing. Those tracks in the ground, they show a lot of variation in shape and movement. Although, most of them are pretty flat. There's a few, like you see the one that Jeff Meldrum always holds up, which seems to show mid-tarsal break and the toe flexion and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's just, that's a classic kind of image that you want to have to go along with your tracks and your recordings of sounds and your findings of sticks and piles of wood or glyphs on the ground. You got to have something more to tie it all together. Just like if you were to say you discovered a new form of animal, any other kind of animal, you would expect it to be like that. You couldn't just have some blurry image in National Geographic or Nature magazine,
right,
saying, well, we saw it really well with our eyes, but in the camera, it's just blurry. And it looks like a tree trunk, but believe me, I felt its presence, and I have PTSD from it now, and I'm never going back in the woods again because of this. All the tropes of Bigfoot storytelling come up, and then a lot of the people, they get very personal about it, and that's unfortunate because you can't comfortably discuss these critical issues without hurting someone's feelings a lot of the time.
Yeah. All right, I know Gary's itching.
My next question. Have you had any type of experiences while you was working with the Bluff Creek Project? Any sightings, sounds, anything like that might lead to believe that there is something there?
Well, back in 1999, I had an odd experience out in the woods hiking outside of Blue Lake into the redwoods and the Forest Service land. That wasn't really a sighting, though, because I can't say for sure. But what happened is we heard a snapping noise, and it was not that far away from us. And something started moving through the brush. And our dogs that were with us these two dogs were mountain dogs, used to this kind of thing, you know. They bolted down the hill chasing after whatever this thing was. And that alone is unusual behavior. And they did so with great avidity. You know, they were obviously acting in a way that was quite different from if it were a bear or a deer. I don't know if you've ever experienced with your animals, you can see if you live out in the woods or you spend a lot of time out there, they will behave differently depending on what the animal is that's coming down into your yard or whatever. So that was a thing. I looked down the hill and I just caught a real short, split-second glimpse of what looked like a head, like a brown thing above the brush level a little. And it just looked like a head. I mean, I couldn't tell you any more than that because it was such a brief glimpse. But, I mean, a lot of people would just come out and say, for sure, that was a Bigfoot. And then I would be able to go around and say, I had a Bigfoot encounter, you know. Right. I mean, unfortunately, I can't join the club because I'm too skeptical about my own experiences. And that one, it felt like a Bigfoot encounter for sure. And it definitely stuck in me, like building intrigue and fascination. Like by the time I moved to Willow Creek in 2001, I was already like transformed into a Bigfoot hunter, you know? Yeah. Like I didn't know there was a Bigfoot community or anything like that. I just went up to Bluff Creek with my girlfriend. We went and looked and could not find our way around in there because we only had like John Green's book, you know. John Green's book has a sketch in it, and we just couldn't find our way until I started getting topo maps and studying them. And then, you know, I had an old topo map from the 70s, and it was not accurate anymore. Yeah. So we kept going down these roads, thinking maybe this one will be it, you know, and then we dead end in some logging area, you know, with a bunch of clear cut, and hike through that till we came to a cliff or whatever. We realized we couldn't get down there. So finally I just kind of gave up until 2007 when I met, you know, I met these guys again, like Bobo and Robert Leiterman and Tommy Amarone and Cliff Barrickman. And we all went up, you know, Tom Powell, I don't know, a lot of those guys. We went up to Bluff Creek, and I got and I was.
We're losing you, Stephen.
In 2000, what's that?
We lost you, there for a second. Yeah, we hear you now.
Oh, that was probably because I was smoking. But anyway, the guys from 2001 all went down there. That was when they had the 2003. Sorry, the International Bigfoot Symposium in Willow Creek, and everybody was there. It was specifically meant to be like gathering of old timers, people like Al Hodgson, you know, Bob Gimlin, John Green, Jim McLaren, Ed Patrick, a bunch of these guys who were all there, the ones that are still living anyway. And those people could not find the film site in 2003. Even with Daniel Perez there, the big expert on the film, whose booklet we used kind of like the Bible later, he had a mark on the map there that he said Renee DeHinden had made. But even he couldn't find the film site. And this looks good, let's say this is, but you have to have all the ducks in a row. And not just like big root balls in the creek that Bob Gimlin talked about, or not just a big bend in the creek, not like a road by the side of the creek, not just a pool where the Bigfoot was supposedly drinking water or whatever. You have to have more than that. You have to have like what you see in the film and what you see in the film site photos and those were not visible anymore. And I'm talking about the big trees that you see in the background,
Mm-hmm.
the fir trees, and also the maples, the red and yellow maples that are back there. And we also were looking for the stumps, because if you look at the film site in the film, it's covered in log stumps and it was left behind by the salvage logging that was done in 1965 and 66 after the big flood. In 2000, not 64, it was a huge flood that basically wiped out the entire watershed, all the way down to the bottom. So you had a nice stage thing for Patty to walk on. But you also had all these stumps and things, which, if they're old growth, they're going to last a long time in the ground. Turns out that a lot of these people, like Bobby Short, were wrong when they told us it's all washed away or rotten away, or all those trees were logged off in the 80s. They weren't. And we eventually found them, and we surveyed the site, to remove the images of the current growth, which is massive overgrowth of young trees, taking back the film site. So we were able to remove all of that in our image, and we documented only the things that were present in 67 or so, including like boring the trees with a tree borer to look at the rings. We could count the rings and see if it was 40 whatever years old,
Yeah.
And we did that, and then we had a guy, our member in the project now, Jamie, did some trigonometry comparing our survey map to the site photo where you can see it from above, and it was an undeniable match of like 28 points. And if you're going to try to deny that, you've got to have some comparable evidence, like MK Davis does not have.
Yeah, I think I saw a map, and I think it was the Bluff Creek Project, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, where you guys superimposed the image from the film over the existing, the way it looks now, and it did match up. I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have a book out. Robert Leiterman and I and the other guys worked on this book, but Robert is the main author. We have pictures of all that stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
You can get that on Amazon. It's just called Bluff Creek Project. But
Yeah.
the big image you might have seen was Robert's working map compared to the photo enlargement. They were set up next to each other, so you could see like numbered or stuff trees that are on there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's undeniable. You look at and give us that. But you say, well, that could be it. That's. It looks like it might be. He hasn't had even a single tree or stump or log to show the location is actually the right spot. He's
Stephen,
got a rumor that was started by some guy.
Stephen, are you moving
Yes.
or are you stationary?
I'm just sitting here in my car.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason the phone keeps breaking up. I'm not sure.
I mean,
why
I
it's
was
doing
holding
that.
the phone, but you're on the Bluetooth in my car.
Okay.
I figured I'd sit out here rather than in the house where the housemate could come back with his Dungeons and Dragons friends and start making a whole ruckus.
My
Yeah, that's
oldest
what they do.
boy is Dragons.
I didn't have much choice in this place where I'm living. When the bookstore burned down, they pulled me out of there unconscious and put me in a ambulance. And I woke up in the ambulance and I was like, what is going on? Oh, I vaguely remembered that there was like the CP guy who was sticking me on the porch I had gone out there and just sat down and shaking me and saying, "Come on, wake up! You got to get out of here." And I was like, "What? Why?" And I didn't even realize what was going on at that point.
Right.
But anyway, that's what happened to the bookstore. In case you're wondering out there, it's no longer in business.
Okay.
In Willow Creek, still looking for any place to live. So I don't know how did I get off on that Willow Creek tangent there.
Yeah, I don't blame you. All right, Gary's ready.
No, I mean, how did I start talking about that? Where were we in the conversation?
We were actually getting ready to talk about the Bluff Creek project.
I've watched the book and the. Yeah, go ahead.
I've watched a few of them, and I was really fascinated. And you're really prevalent in the show. And your main thing is you keep telling them, said this is not the right spot, and you keep comparing it with, and it's not just the map. You used descriptions from Bob Gimlin and other people, and you didn't rely just strictly on what the map said, that you looked for these specific landmarks that were there. And I know you said you found the site and had 28 points of contact where it all matched. Just tell us a little bit more about that process, what it was like.
Oh, well, so as I was saying before, in 2003, they couldn't find it. And, at that point, I started getting more and more curious until I met, the guys who would know best, I thought, local California researchers. And they couldn't point it out to me exactly either. Although it turned out in the end, they were right. Bobo and Cliff and Bob Gimlin, who had been there in 2003, had said something like Bobo, this place looks familiar now. But at that point of the day was ending and they were all leaving, so it didn't get investigated by the whole group. And at that point I just realized that this is a real big glaring hole in the Bigfoot knowledge. There's all these people arguing all day long about the Patterson film and whatever Bob Gimlin might have said back in '67 or whatever thing, and yet we cannot go to the film site and point at it and say, here is exactly where the creature walked, right? And so I read everything, all the books, all the interviews, all the maps and photos and diagrams and documentaries. I mean, every single thing that exists, I read it, except, if I couldn't find it, like a lot of old letters or whatever that Renee Hinden might have written. You can find a lot of that stuff in our guy, Dustin Severs, has a book that he wrote, which covers all of Bluff Creek history, and that is called The Abominable Snowman of California. And anyway, those are the kind of things that maybe weren't available to us at the time, but we just took what we could find and we threw it all into the hopper and said, okay, well, there's according to the Bigfoot community, there's at least 5 different film sites, and none of them are specific enough to show where Patterson was actually standing when he shot that film. And so we started working on it and, narrowed things down. Like what Peter Byrne told us was not accurate and it could never have been the film site. We hiked all over the MK Davis area, which is downstream further, and we couldn't find a single piece of evidence that was the film site. And it was way too big, too. If you measured it, it was triple the size that it should have been. And, MK, I think, just got impressed because when he was last up there before, he decided that the film site upstream was too narrow, and not really paying attention to the fact that your impression of things doesn't matter. Sorry. your opinions and first impressions are just yours. They're not facts. And having some guy that MK talked to, who had been there in 2003, who walked downstream and claimed that he found the film site when nobody else did. Well, that's not evidence either. And what else? Peter Byrne and Bobby Short had said that Peter Burns counted the steps up to the film site, and it was supposed to be like 2.1 miles from the bridge. And, then he said, and Peter Byrne added the clever little, and then 12 more steps. So thank you, Peter. That's exact enough. But, they didn't even say which bridge it was, because there's actually 2 bridges there now.
Yeah.
But those inexact measurements and opinions didn't really help us. But we ruled out all these other sites until we came, to the one, where Christopher Murphy showed in his book that was not accurate. And then, talking with Daniel Perez and Chris Murphy and John Green and Jim McLaren and Peter Byrne and all these other guys, I started to clarify the certain issues, and it enabled us to rule out the false film sites. And then we just had to get down to it and document it, which we did, so that nobody should, in their right mind, be able to say it's not the film site at this point. And, Bill Munns, if you trust him, he's an expert on the film. He said there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
We took him to the film site. I mean, he's an old guy. It was not easy to, we had to take care of him walking back up that hill, but.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, guess what? Guess what time it is?
Time for a commercial?
No, it's time for your new theme song, Stephen.
Oh, no. The AI generated thing?
Yep. So we always like to do a
know how
country
much I
tune.
love AI.
Well, you might be impressed with this one. So we all know
All
that
right, I'll
Gary
sit back and listen to it.
Gary Kendrick's favorite music is country music, so we made a country tune about you. Well, I didn't.
Well,
AI
if it's awful, can I hit the gong button?
I haven't heard that in a long time.
No, the Gong Show.
Yeah, one of my favorite shows when I was a kid.
Yes, sir.
All right, so the song is entitled "The Quest at Bluff Creek." Here we go.
Stephen's truck kicked up the dust down that old logging road. He's got a compass and a map to trace where legends load. Through the redwoods and the mist, he feels the mystic pull, searching for a shadow that could make believers whole. Campsite set, the fires lit, night whispers through the trees, listening to tales they'd heard in elusive giants' pleas. Bluff Creek's water shimmer, reflecting dreams untold, where footprints leave a story and secrets start to unfold. Oh, Stephen's eyes are searching, hope lighting up his path through the woods of Bluff Creek, where science meets the past. With every step he takes, every snap of twig or stone, he's chasing more than legends, he's finding what's his own. He's got trail cams and old reports, skeptic turned devout. In the heart of California, faith drives away the doubt. Underneath the starlight, the forest starts to hum, a song of ancient creatures, a mystery to overcome. Nights blend into mornings and still he presses on, tracking through the conifers long after the dawn. He knows the truth is out there, written in the leaves, every bark and thicket in what the mind believes. So Stephen's eyes are searching, hope lighting up his path through the woods of Bluff Creek, where science meets the past. With every step he takes, He's finding what's his own, wondering what's his own. Oh, he nights blend into mornings, and still he presses on, tracking through the comfort long after the dawn. He knows the truth is out there, written in the leaves, and every bark and thicket in what the mind believes. Oh, Stephen's eyes are searching, hope lighting up his path through the woods of Bluff Creek, where science meets the past. With every step he takes, every snap of twig or stone, he's chasing more than legends, he's finding what's his own.
There you have it, Stephen, your new theme song.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
He's finding what is his. Yeah, I
You
mean,
own
that
it.
makes a
You
lot of
own
sense to me nowadays. But yeah, I've got to say that the story is about more than me. I'm just one guy in a group, and we like to say we don't have a leader, we don't have any rules. We're just a group of people who all contribute what we can to the Bluff Creek project. And I would never have continued myself, but meeting Ian Carton in 2009, that's how it really got rolling, because we were at the Yakima Bigfoot Roundup at Bob Gimlin's ranch. And, you know, instead of getting all involved in things, we just had a long conversation about the film site issue. And like, we were both stunned that nobody could go there and just find it and point it out. So he turns out lived in Redmond, which is quite actually close by Northern California standards to Willow Creek. So we started going up to Bluff Creek in 2009, and that's where we just hike up the whole canyon and try to find, you know, what and, you know, at that point it wasn't even very precise. We had too many propositions, but we got Robert Leiterman on board recording the videos, which you can find on YouTube. You mentioned those. They're hosted by the BFRO videos page, but also on our own page there's some. You can look up Bluff Creek Project on there. You'll also find what we're doing nowadays. I mean, since that point, we got Rowdy Kelly involved. He's a film, he works in film, like location scouting, and he does his own drone footage and lots of other kind of expert level stuff. So we started building this team. Jamie, the biologist, and also our trigonometry guy. And from there, you know, we added a number of other people as we went along. Those are your main guys. I mean, we have a bunch of associated members too, like Tate Hieronymus or Kip Morrill. And, you know, of course, people like Cliff and Bobo, they're still supporters. Anyway, that's who it's really all about, is trying to find the truth. And it's a group process that we have here. We all, hopefully, in a big community, so-called, can communicate with each other regardless of whether we think that Bigfoot is real or not. You know, and whether it's a portal jumping, dimension hopping, woo-woo thing or not.
All right, Gary. I see you over there. You're still itching.
I know the Bluff Creek Project is more than just the film site itself. Would you care to expand on what other
I was going to say.
into?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're all interested in writing books. Me too. Robert wrote one. It's sort of group authorship, but he's the main author. He was the one who actually did all the work of writing it down. And Dustin Severs, also an amazing piece of scholarship that everybody should read if you're interested in Bluff Creek history. and currently what we've been doing since 2012, when the site was proven, I mean, without a doubt, we've been putting up trail cameras, and we have up to 15 or so every year, scattered about the film site area and into water spots like the lakes around that area. So we have pretty well covered the whole, survival area for a Bigfoot type creature in Bluff Creek. If they're still there, if they still exist up there. Unfortunately, we haven't got anything definitive for the Bigfoot creature, but we did prove, I think, without a doubt, that those famous Jacobs photos are just a bear. The ones from Pennsylvania, where it's that weird creature bending down, kind of looks like a chimp, or whatever. But we got images like that, exactly replicating that posture. And also, another thing that we achieved, mostly through Jamie investigating it, was the Humboldt marten. We got images of these martens that were supposed to be extinct. At some point in the 20th century, they'd basically been assumed to be extinct. And then one guy, he was looking into some other wildlife issue. He found a track, like a track or two, I don't know. And he was able to say that's a marten track. And at that point, we kind of assumed, everybody assumed, well, there must be a breeding population of martens hidden up there somewhere. And it turns out that Bluff Creek is like the heart of that area, which is now just recently been designated as a special conservation area for the marten, going all the way up into Oregon and Northern California out to the redwood areas on the coast as well. But it's been declared an endangered species. It's not the same as a pine marten in other parts of the country, which are very common. It's a special kind of marten that is, evolved in this area alone. And genetically, they're quite distinct, even from the Sierra marten, which is right next door, as far as the habitat goes. So that's what we've been doing. Every year, we refresh those cameras with new batteries and digital cards, and we just go and record everything that happens, 24 hours a day, all year round. And Bluff Creek is only open to the public from, say, late May, early June to October, late October. So you don't have a huge window where people are even up there, and they lock the gates. And the only people that get in there are a few handful of residents who have a grandfathered in property, and maybe a poacher or two.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, Stephen. I was going to ask you, how many people, how many humans did you catch on those cameras back there, kind of looking around?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. We don't get very many. You would think that there would be a ton of people out there in Bluff Creek enjoying these water spots. But they aren't really there. We delete all the images of people that we get. Eventually, there was one case where there was a missing person, and we thought we had gotten her on a trail camera.
Nice.
It was pretty exciting, but it turned out it wasn't her. She was lost out in the Bluff Creek area, and she was just a couple of miles away from where we were. Yeah. But we do get a lot of Bigfoot people, like people who come down there, and we don't hide the cameras, so we don't want it to seem like, we're spying on anybody. So they come down and they see the trail camera right away, and they think, well, that must be those guys, those Bluff Creek guys. So, usually they'll do some funny antic, like moon you or whatever. Like we do have a number of moonshots of Bigfooters' butts.
Is
I
that
mean,
going to go?
usually
Is that going to go on the
we are.
website?
No. I think those get deleted too. But Rowdy and Jamie have been dealing with all those images, so you better talk to them.
Yeah, I'm
There's
sure
just
you
too
get
much
some
data
interesting
for us to share back and forth anymore.
Yeah. So those are all cameras that you have to go and retrieve the data. They don't like send it to cell phones or anything like that.
Oh, well, yeah, because traditionally there's been zero cell phone service down there in the creek
Yeah.
bottom. You can't even get a proper GPS reading from the satellites because you need triangulation, and usually there's only like 2 satellites available that can scan down in there.
We have
I'm not an
a
expert on
similar
that, but
area.
we've had pretty crappy GPS.
Yeah, we have a similar area here in Virginia where we've investigated, and actually not only can you not get a GPS signal, but it actually somehow or another scrambles everything on the map. You can't even find, if you got lost in there, you're gonna be in some trouble because you won't find your way out.
Maybe that's some Men in Black action going on.
Well, it is close to a military base.
Somebody trying to hide the spot.
Yeah. So near Quantico, I'll put it that way.
Well, are we done with that question? I don't know.
Yeah, we're done with that.
Say more.
Gary's ready.
I noticed you was talking in the Bluff Creek Project film about the soil there at the film site and the sand and things like that, and how it would hold footprints for long periods of time. And I know from listening to other things that Bob Gimlin was concerned about the footprints getting washed away during the rain. And he actually covered some with bark and things like that. And I think they were eventually cast by other people.
Yeah,
but my question is,
you can see that too.
But my question is, can you explain to us a little bit more about what are you there?
Oh, we didn't lose you.
Not hearing you very well there.
Is there anything that you can tell us about the soil and how the sand and the gravel and things worked with the footprints?
Oh, yeah. Well, like I said about the flood in '64, what you had was a big log jam downstream from the film site that piled up in this narrow part of the creek. And eventually all the sediment coming down backed up and created this siltation level where all the stuff up on the top was the lightest, finest grain of sand. And you can still see it there. Just scratch the surface an inch away, and you'll find that there's this super soft, incredibly fine gray-black sand. It's kind of a bluish gray. There's certain rocks up there that create this color, and it's pretty unique. Like for track making, if you can find a spot where that stuff is exposed, it'll hold a track for a long time, actually. And we once did an experiment where we made some fake tracks and put flags on them, and came back the next season, in the summer after October, in the whole winter, and those tracks were still easily visible, despite, of course, a lot of rain and snow and everything. And in fact, the next year, they were still visible the next year.
Wow.
And this is something that John Green had said and Jim McLaren when they went back in June after, the film was shot in October. They couldn't get back in there until June when the snow melts and everything. And this was June '68. Jim and John went there, and they said they could still see the tracks in the ground, amazingly enough. But you know, that's how they did their recreation of the film, is by following those tracks that were still there. Just depressions, you know, they weren't perfect tracks anymore, and that's pretty much what Bob Gimlin had said. They got called down there to look at tracks that were found earlier in '67 and on Blue Creek Mountain and Onion Mountain. There were 2 instances of these trackways found, and yet those are different. They're up on the ridge, and so the ground that they were walking in was soft, plowed, graded road. You know, it was like a dirt road with very loose soil on top of it. And so those tracks, they were really clear when they were first made, and you can see those in the books. They're like the famous Bigfoot tracks.
Yeah.
But given a few days, they could be destroyed rather quickly by, you know, for one, just the trucks going back and forth on that road, because that was the middle of a road building project that was going on at the time. And the tracks that Bob Gimlin and Roger went to see, they looked and they only found vague depressions that in the spot where they were told to go. So there was something left, but Bob Gimlin was concerned about the tracks that were left by the film creature or the subject, whatever you think it is, that they would be washed away, because when they got through contacting the press and shipping out the film to Yakima or Seattle, they went back up to Bluff Creek, and it was after midnight. Then it started to rain, and Roger Patterson just rolled over and went back to sleep. But Bob Gimlin, he was avid about this. He got up and got on his horse and went out there. He had grabbed some cardboard that he thought he was going to use for that earlier, and apparently the cardboard was all wet. So he went up there and just did what he could by pulling bark. You know, if you pull a bark on a fir, you can get a big slab of it, like off an old log, right? You start pulling on this broken part of it, and you get a whole slab. And so he actually laid out on top of some of the prints these pieces of wood that protected them. However, you can see in the 10 casts that Bob Titmus got, there are some of those, since Titmus just cast all the tracks in a row sequentially. He didn't want to get just one good one here and one good one there. So he documented 10 steps, or 12, actually. Though you can see that some of them are better than others. You can see that the ones that are worse have been water damaged. So it confirms Bob Gimlin's story. That's one of the things people always say, well, they just made up this crap, right? They're lying or they contradict themselves. But, I mean, in more cases than not, what Bob Gimlin said was true. And, you know, he had an amazing memory for a lot of it. It's hard to believe, actually, after all those decades, that he would remember. I mean, like, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, right? But, you know, he still remembers, not maybe the breakfast, but he remembers, you know, how long the tracks were from each other and so forth. I guess it was etched in his memory like a profound event or something.
Yeah.
And you know,
it would be if it's real. If it's real, you would really remember it. So yet again, there's a sort of confirmation right there.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, Steve, I'm actually kind of jealous. I've always been a big fan of the Patterson-Gimlin film. I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. I saw the film, you know, on In Search Of and things like that growing up. And it must be really incredible to actually go to the actual site where it took place at to see it.
Oh yeah, well, it's a super fascinating kind of thing. Like once you get absorbed into it, it's kind of like Loch Ness, but even way more mysterious. Like I don't think that the Loch Ness monster is very believable, but when you get out in the Bluff Creek area, you start to believe in Bigfoot, whether you want to or not, because it's such a perfect habitat for such a creature if it exists to live. Uh, you know, and you study the history and you realize, like this, yeah, it's a memory from your childhood. Like Leonard Nimoy's voice is in the background or whatever.
Yeah.
I just remember I was so fascinated by that when I was a kid. You know, it stuck in my memory. But I lived here in Humboldt County, and I knew the film site was supposed to be around here somewhere, but I really didn't have a clear cut idea. You know, it took years for that to develop, and eventually, you know, we got obsessed with it. Like it was like our lives, like the whole life. You know, thinking about Bluff Creek and Bigfoot, talking on the phone for like 5 hours a day. You know, that kind of thing.
Do you see that question on the screen, Stephen?
Oh, it's hard to read it. Let me
It says,
see. Here.
what does Stephen think of Bigfoot expert Jerry Williams?
Jerry Williams?
Jerry Williams.
Is that his name?
That's, I guess.
Oh, or did Jerry Williams write that question?
Don't know. The person that wrote it is, their username is Guff1980.
Yeah, that might be the Bigfoot expert himself. He's very interested in promoting himself. He's created this Facebook identity. I am the Bigfoot expert. He never breaks his personality, and he's very serious about it, actually. But I mean, we know who he is.
Yeah.
You know, his real name and all that. But
Yeah.
we don't want to expose him. All I can really tell you is it's the same guy who years ago put out videos under the name of the Drunken Bigfooter.
Okay.
And his whole shtick back then was, I don't know, maybe he went to AA or something, because he would go out in the woods with a bottle of Jameson. And the whole kind of idea was, in one YouTube video, you would see him guzzle down the whole bottle of Jameson. And he'd be so drunk that he would find all this Bigfoot evidence. And some of those are incredibly funny, I have to say. There's a lot of people who think that the Bigfoot expert is a jerk or a troll or whatever. Like, they actually believe that he's serious about it. And I just have to say, some people take their Bigfoot a little too seriously, because there's a lot of fun to be had and a lot of satire. And, you know, a lot of things in the Bigfoot world are very comical.
Yeah.
Like, you know, M.K. Davis and Todd Gatewood, for instance. Just laughable clowns.
You got to be, you know, you have to be able to laugh about this stuff. I mean, you know, if you take things serious all the time, you just, you know, you got to have the fun.
You know, we started the coalition group. We thought, well, it's a coalition of people from all across the map. But what is going to unite us is like science, reason, and sanity. And it's kind of a satire. So that we finally, people were still not getting the joke. We put in the word satire and sanity. So, I mean, it was starting to get longer and longer trying to explain the joke. And finally, I just got sick of it. And I changed the name of the group to the Coalition for Critical Thinking in Bigfoot Research. And like now those words, critical thinking, piss off everybody. Like they think that we're trying to be smarter than everybody else.
Right.
Or, oh, well, you're an idiot because you believe in Bigfoot. I mean, that's not what we're doing in there. We will discuss the evidence and all the history and the claims and science in general. and we, like to think that it has value beyond whether Bigfoot is real or not. Like
Right.
learning how to think critically is important in anything you do. Working on your car, trying to
Right.
figure out where a good place to go fishing is. I mean, whatever you do, put your critical thinking into it.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but the burden of proof is on the believers. And if they want us to believe, then all they have to do is bring us some good evidence.
Yeah.
Convincing evidence, not just some blurry, stupid stick structure. I mean, how much more of that can we stand? I mean, we've already seen like M.K. Davis and his whole thing for years, where he was finding hemorrhoids on Patty's behind, and he originally said it was prolapsed uterus.
Oh,
And
my
this
goodness.
is following upon, of course, the idea that Patty was pregnant, and that's why Patty had big breasts, because she had a baby, and she was either carrying the baby, hiding it off the edge of the camera view, or it was hidden in the bushes somewhere.
Right.
Now M.K. Davis and his ally Todd Gatewood are doing the same thing, only they're using AI or computer enhancement software to generate what they think Patty looks like.
Yeah.
But, you can't get a better image than what's on that original film. No matter how much enhancement your computer can put into it, it can't be ascertained as actually really there unless you can see it without the enhancement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's once you enhance something, you're changing it and you're adding in detail, and it's beyond restoring it. Like you can see, Bill Munns and Jeff Meldrum took all the known copies of the film and layered them on top of each other to create a composite image showing all the details of the film that actually are there. And in some of the copying lines, they were sort of lost, or maybe a color or a shape or something is lost. So you can go and sort of say, well, it's in this one. How primary is that? Can we put that into the picture? And eventually they created a really wonderful looking imagery of the film, but it's not like what MK and this other fellow are doing. Those guys are trying to redo the whole film, supposedly, from a copy that apparently John Eric Beckjord, stole from Patricia Patterson. From what we can tell, he worked as sort of a secretary to her for a while, and he borrowed the film from her, and that's an admitted known thing. But when he was done, he just put something back in the safe or whatever they used as a vault, And this is a first generation copy, supposedly. The best one that's never been projected or messed with at all. And he took it and apparently did not return it, because what Bill Munns found in the safe or vault up in Yakima when he went up there with the National Geographic TV show people, he said to me in person, this was not a very good copy at all. It was inferior in many ways, in terms of color and in terms of resolution. And on the leader of the film, the advanced strip of the film at the beginning, had been written Beckjord. So I think if his name is written on it, then it's very likely that was a copy he had made for himself.
Yeah.
By some other means before he got the Patterson's vault copy. And that's what was the only thing in there. That's all Bill Munns found. So they still made the TV show, but what they showed was not that great.
Right.
it was like, this was like 2009, and Munz kind of had to go along with the show because you can't just suddenly say, well, we can't use that whole thing. You know, they had to put something on the screen to talk about the Patterson film. So he didn't. It's not like a hoax. They just showed it the way it was, but he didn't talk about the other doubts he had.
Yeah. And
anyway, this copy of the film was kicking around in the estate of Eric Bechtard, who's a notorious Bigfoot clown, if you know his history. But
I do.
prankster researcher, if there ever was one. And when he passed away, we thought, oh, that's going to surface somewhere, because we kept hearing the rumors about it. And when this big box collection came into the Willow Creek Museum, I thought for sure, there it is, you know. And I called up the people and tried to get them to look at it and to see what it was. And we immediately ascertained that it was a collection of Bechtard's materials in, like, I don't know what it was, 15 boxes or something like that. And in there might have been this original first generation copy. But Bill Munz finally came up and looked at it and looked through all the boxes and only found one Patterson film in there that it was not the one we were looking for. And sure enough, someone had cherry picked out the estate and took that film out of it. And it's now resurfaced in the hands of the Maccabee family. Mm-hmm. What's his name? Bruce Maccabee? Mm-hmm. Anyway, the Maccabees are he's known as, he just passed away a few months ago. So you should be hearing even more about this now. They'll probably release something soon. But Maccabee was known for being on UFO documents and documentaries and in the MUFON organization. Yeah. But they were claiming his wife got all involved because she thought she had seen a baby Bigfoot in the bushes or behind a stump. And this is what MK and Todd Gatewood are working on currently. So whatever they have, if they have the right to use it, it's probably stolen property. But they're apparently going to go and enhance the whole film like they did for that one frame. Mm-hmm. And if they do that, it's going to look totally different. Which,
well, that
I don't know.
Should be interesting.
The old hoaxers never go away. You know, I mean, they just come back. And that film, if they produce a version of it, it's just going to be a problem rather than helpful, because it's not going to reveal true detail, and it's going to create more illusions. Like, a lot of people already have a lot of illusions about the film subject because the film, it inspires such fantasy. Like, oh, that looks like it's 7 or 8 feet tall. But we know from measuring the film site that it's only 6 feet, maybe 3 inches tall. Mm-hmm. That's how tall Patty was, which is the exact same height as Bob Hieronymus, mm-hmm. and also Bobo. We had Bobo on the film site, and he looks exactly the right size to be Patty. Yeah. But anyway, I'm not saying it's a hoax. I'm just saying that whatever you see coming from the Maccabee family and MK Davis and Todd Gatewood is going to be, I think, pretty nutty, you know, and use caution when watching it. Yeah. That's all I have to say about that.
Well, that's interesting. That's interesting, Stephen. Can you believe we've already went over an hour?
Yeah. Well, you know, what a tangled web we weave, you know, when we first practiced to research Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. I
mean, like, some of the people in the Bigfoot world are deceivers. And that's one of the hardest things to do, is to figure out with certainty who's full of shit, or can I say that? Full of full of doo doo, and truthful, and also not just making stuff up, but is reliable and knows how to find what facts are. Using science and logic and evidence, and that's where Bigfoot research needs to go, and stop drifting off into the woo-woo fantasy world, like I notice so many people doing these days.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Well, Stephen, we want to thank you. We really enjoyed the show. I know Gary enjoyed hearing about the Bluff Creek project, as I did.
Yeah.
And, got a bunch of your folks in here. We got Mary Wilson in here, and
I forgot to look at that.
Yeah, I thought I saw
Where's
somebody else come
Ganglion?
in here. I don't know where he's at. He may not be listening live.
He must not have caught on.
Yeah, he'll catch
He's
it
not
later.
he's not as avid a troll as he used to be.
He'll catch it later.
You'll probably know. And now that I'm talking about him, I'll guarantee you, within a week, we're gonna have barrages of fake identities posting crap on all our pages.
I'm used to it. Soon Gary will be used to it, and it keeps hanging around.
I live so far back in the mountains, I can't get messages half the time.
Yeah.
If you're not going to deliver it on a horse, I'm probably not going to get it.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I always try to talk to promote the righteous cause, of reason and research.
Yeah.
That's what I can do well. I don't know. I'm not the biggest field researcher guy with my camouflage outfit and boots and all that. I'm kind of retired from doing that.
Yeah. I think most of us can't really get around as good as we used to.
Yeah. I used to climb over just about anything out there in Bluff Creek. Now I don't know if I even want to walk a mile,
I might walk about a quarter of a mile, and then y'all have to wait on me while I catch my breath.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It happens to all of us. I got some kind of heart condition, probably caused by Bigfooters' stress,
See, you let them get to you, Stephen. You can't do that.
Well, but it was like war. From 2008 till about 2018, it was like war.
Yeah.
Fighting all day long with the Ketchum people and the M.K. Davis people and the whatever, even like BFRO guys,
Yeah. Well, we enjoyed it, Stephen. Hope
I just
everything
don't care.
goes well.
I don't really care.
Exactly.
If Bigfoot's real, I'll be very happy. And if it's not, I'm not going to cry,
Yep. Exactly. Well, thank you, Stephen. We appreciate it. We're going to go ahead and end the show, and hopefully people will catch it in the archives too. So
maybe put some links up in your description about the Bluff Creek project.
Yep, I will do that. So,
and
Stephen,
those
thank
books
you.
I mentioned.
Yep, will do.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Have a good night.
Yep,
Thanks.
You too. All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and end this show. And y'all join us next Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, we'll have another guest. I'm still working on getting a guest. I've got a couple that's waiting to give me some dates. So I will let you know when I know. Gary, enjoy I'm assuming you're still camping.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Until September the 3rd, I believe.
Yep. Well, you enjoy that. I'm sure that those kids drive you a little crazy.
No, they're fine. It's just I don't recover as quick as I used to.
If you want them to go to bed, just say, "Hey, look, there's one of them Bigfoots over there," and they'll all jump in the tent. So, scare them a little bit. All right. thank you all for coming on the show, and we will see you all next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.